Hello, and you're very welcome to our County Antrim FleadhFest, and we're going to take you on a musical journey of our beautiful County Antrim.
The blue hills of Antrim I see in my dreams. The high hills of Antrim, the glens and the streams, in sunlight and shadow, in weal and in woe, the sweet vision haunts me wherever I go. The winds in the heather of sunny Mclaughlin, and soft through the vale of Glenshesque hath it played. That sad look at Troston I cannot forget. My heart pines in darkness, my lashes are wet. The blue hills of Antrim I see in my dreams. The high hills of Antrim, the glens and the streams, in sunlight and shadow, in weal and in woe, the sweet vision haunts me wherever I go.
Ta feire is fáilte rómhalig, hig FleadhFest Portglenone, ja vile fihe sa hain. Ta iirecht cultartha siver, ag an Comhaltas I Portglenone. Is ceantar é seo óna dascar cuid mór ceoltarí cailile. Agus an nacht, ben talan sin le feiceáil an ardan seo. Buinigi Saltas. There has been a long tradition of Irish music in the Portglenone area. The branch was formed after an inspirational performance by Anne O'Brien at the All-Ireland Fleadh Cheoil in Listowel in the early 70s. 3 local men who travelled the country to enjoy that fleadh returned to the County Antrim village determined to bring the musical tradition to the local area. A cross-community committee of local members held the first general meeting in the small loft above Brian Quinn's grocery shop in the village in early 1974. Sessions started in the Wild Duck shortly afterwards, which attracted the attention of musicians in the surrounding areas and across neighbouring counties. Traditional music began to thrive in the village with the merging of the Irish and Scots traditions. And In the midst of the chaos all around during the 1970s and 80s, Portglenone CCE was a beacon of true cross-community relationships. A strong bond of respect was forged between all sections of the community through a mutual love of music.
This is an ecumenical gathering, a get-together, if you like, of people who enjoy traditional music. Protestants and Catholics play the tunes of long ago. Members of both religions flock in to listen. Religious, racial and cultural differences which divide the people of Ulster are forgotten here. The music is what matters.
The branch blossomed with time, practice and enthusiasm. With growing numbers attending sessions, the branch was awarded the honour of hosting the first County Antrim Fleadh in 1975, with competitions supported by the county's Antrim and Derry Country Fiddlers Association. A great atmosphere in the hot summer of that year led to the event being repeated in 1976, with Portglenone branch running the full event. Now established as an exciting venue, the village became the chosen location for many events, and to date, Portglenone have hosted 11 county fleadhs. A glimpse of achievements to come could be seen early on, when the Portglenone branch celebrated 2 All-Ireland Fleadh titles, in 1976 for Ballycastle in the under-12 singing, and our Comhaltas branch founder Anne O'Brien in the senior fiddle slow air competitions. For a small community, these were major honours indeed, and were inspirational to a large number of musicians in the area.
Portglenone, from the Irish Portglenone, meaning landing place of Owen's Meadow, is a village in southwest County Antrim. Portglenone is beside the smaller settlement of Glenone in County Derry, separated by the River Bann. For many visitors to Portglenone, their journey involves crossing the distinctive 3-arch bridge over the River Bann. Designed by Charles Lanyon, this basalt stone bridge has been synonymous with Portglenone ever since its construction in 1853. Linking communities, counties and cultures, the bridge is integral to the life of Portglenone. Our Lady of Bethlehem Abbey, a Cistercian monastery, is another very well-known landmark in Portglenone. Founded in 1948 after the monks bought Portglenone House, the community built a new monastery designed in a modern style in the 1960s. The monastery is a focal point for many miles around, attracting thousands of visitors a year. Roger Casement's GAC and Geraldine's Camogie Club play a huge part in the cultural fabric of Portglenone, providing an outlet for sports, music and the arts. With a shared and diverse membership, the clubs embrace modern trends and blend these with its own rich history and background. Portglenone Forest and Malloy's Ford provide nature's record of the journey from ancient to more modern times. Visitors can enjoy riverside walks and meandering trails through acres of native broadleaf trees. The swathes of bluebells in spring are especially remarkable when the forest floor and its hillsides turn into a deep blue carpet of bluebells in the first 2 weeks of May. The piper and dancer statues in Portglenone's Bank Square serve as a tangible reminder of the importance placed on culture in the village. The piping tradition is strong in the area, with local pipe bands such as McNeilstown hosting visitors from far afield. Irish dancing is shared, with many travelling dance schools coming to the village each week. Commissioned by Portglenone Enterprise Group and forged by local sculptor Billy Mclaughlin, inspired by these shared performances, Piper Sam and Irish dancer Rasharkin command centre stage and act as a focal point for the numerous community events that take place throughout the year. Portglenone is a bustling village with a variety of shops and independent businesses, an established cafe culture and numerous eating and drinking establishments, with the Wild Duck Inn perhaps the best known. This active, vibrant ambience is a direct reflection of the strong community spirit that exists, and Portglenone's CCE branch plays an active part in these shared activities.
The fledgling branch was nurtured through the 1980s, boosted by exchange visits in the 1990s to Ballinasloe in County Galway and then Tubbercurry in South Sligo. Many great connections and friendships were made and continue to flourish to this very day. Central to the development of our branch was the introduction of weekly Monday night classes in the early 80s in the local primary school. We were honoured to have the musical legend John Kennedy to be one of our tin whistle tutors for our classes, one of many to impart their knowledge and skills to over 100 pupils across a wide variety of instruments. We introduced a mini Fleadh run at the end of the second term in April as preparation for the County Antrim Fleadh in May. This gave the pupils valuable experience in playing in front of an audience and an adjudicator in Fleadh competitions. After the early successes of Malachy Kearney and Anne O'Brien in the 70s, the commitment and dedication to these weekly classes through the 80s and 90s began to bear fruit, with more county, provincial and All-Ireland successes coming home to our branch. The dedication and commitment of early branch members has been formally recognised. When Comhaltas introduced the Gradam Awards to honour those who worked tirelessly for the promotion of Irish traditional music, song, language and dance in their local area, one of our founding members, Brian Quinn, was the first to receive his services to Comhaltas 50th Anniversary Award in 2001. Over the next few years, Gradam Awards were awarded to Tony Convery, Geraldine Donnelly, Robert Close, Enda Clark and Eamon Graham. It was a huge honour for two of our CCE members to represent our branch on the Mclaughlin Irish concert tours. Laura Donnelly was a member of the travelling troupe in 1995, while Brona Graham was a representative in 2007. A constant presence over the years is our very own Harry O'Neill, whose dedication and commitment helped and strengthened the Wednesday evening junior sessions. As our longest serving tutor, it was no surprise that Harry was presented with a Services to Comhaltas Gradam Award in 2019. Portglenone CCE started the Wednesday evening sessions to build upon the pupils' confidence when playing in a group situation, and this evolved into an intergenerational exercise in transferring the skills and instilling the enthusiasm for playing Irish music by all. Initially, under the direction of Harry O'Neill, Kevin O'Kane and Kieran Convery, junior sessions have been running every Wednesday evening in the Wild Duck Inn for the past 13 years. These weekly sessions have helped encourage not only the skill of playing together, but the ability to arrange and perform musical set pieces for public performances. Portglenone CCE have hosted many successful concerts and events throughout the years. The Wild Duck Inn and the Cross Keys Inn are two local venues with strong associations to traditional music. Here we have local branch member Tommy Fenton singing at the Cross Keys.
Communicate of a terrible tragedy, for the want of trade as thousands sailed to wander far to Rome, and to leave the land where we were reared, called Erin's lovely home. My father being a farming man, reared to industry. He had two sons of tender age, and lovely daughters three. He tried his best to maintain us all, but some of us had to roam and leave the land where we were reared, called Erin's lovely home.
Always striving to promote and raise the profile of music in our branch, grades in Irish traditional music and singing were introduced over the last few years, with many of our pupils gaining certificates of merit or distinction to recognise their achievements. One of our members, Lorcan Dara, progressed even further. He completed his ALCM, then his LLCM, and his last exam was the FLCM, so Lorcan now has a fellowship to the London College of Music. Traditional singing has turned out to be very popular, and Portglenone CCE is privileged to have the renowned local singer Mairead Walls pass on her expertise to our most promising young singers.
Place my affections on a handsome young dame. She seemed fair and tender, her waist small and slender. Kind nature had formed her for my overthrow. On the banks of the Ban, sure 'twas there I beheld her. She appeared like great Juno, and the fair Grecian queen. Her eyes shone like diamonds, or stars brightly gleaming, and her cheeks they bloomed like roses, or blood drops on snow.
Perhaps our most recent and proudest achievement as a branch was winning the An Pleairice Ulster Senior title in November 2019, a competition held in Dunloy, Omagh, where we had 29 branch members of all ages involved. This title qualified us to compete in the All-Ireland An Pleairice competition held in Cashel, County Tipperary in January 2020, just prior to the COVID-19 lockdown. Despite recent challenges to our traditions, notably through COVID-19 pandemic, branch members have embraced modern technologies, sharing tunes and recordings over social media, in turn nurturing the seed to ensure we will have a cultural harvest in the light of the new dawn. Portglenone is and will remain a solid stronghold of traditional Irish music and culture, proud of its heritage, assured in its guardianship, and confident of its future. That is where the future lies, in the youth of today.
Good Eve. My name is John Agnew, present chairman of Loughbeg CCE. My father, Fonsie Agnew, was the previous chairman. Loughbeg is situated on the River Ban near the village of Toom, made famous by the ballad of Roddy McCorley from 1798. The Loughbeg area always had a very strong music base due to house sessions and marching bands.
CCE Loughbeg Antrim.
The branch was formed in 1976 by Tommy McGee and Barney Duffin. Other names involved were Agnews, O'Neills, Mclaughlins and Scullions. Naturally, they had their classes for music and ceilidh dancing and hosted monthly session. Families involved were Agnew, McStalkers, Murrays and Scullions. The classes were held in Ballycastle Chapel and McStalkers House. The first All-Ireland for the branch was in 1977 by Barry McGee. In 1980 we were represented by the Clooney Band at the All-Ireland. Due to the dedication of Danny O'Neill and Fonsie Agnew, the branch survived the 80s with few members. A new generation of musicians emerged in the mid-90s, which brought a new wave of life to the branch, led to the formation of a group of Cheoil that competed in the Fleadh in 1997.
My name is Bernie McGinley from Randallstown. I'm not originally from County Antrim. I grew up in County Tyrone. My father played in a pipe band and played the piano key accordion as well. My grandfather played the fiddle and the mandolin and was what you'd call a social step dancer for entertainment purposes only. The children then, when they came along, I got them into traditional music initially through the primary school. My son Peter plays concertina and my daughter Ellen plays flute. As a child I did Irish dancing, and then in later life I moved into traditional step dancing, and I've been doing that for about 30 years. The step we dance today is Maggie Pickens. It's a traditional northern dance, and that the steps are originally from a Breslin family in County Donegal, and they were taught to me initially by a lady called Margaret Ray from Derry.
I'm Anne-Marie McKee, and I want to introduce my children, Anna McKee on concertina, Mary McKee on the fiddle, Barry McKee on the whistle, and Seamus McKee on the accordion. Early memories of my uncle, Johnny Ward, playing the accordion in our house in Scotland. Johnny brought a love of accordions to the family. He played in the Harp of Erin Clooney Band in Fermanagh, and he played in the Four Seasons Clooney Band in Glasgow, as well as playing for the Comhaltas every Sunday. Unfortunately, Johnny died when I was young, when I was 16, but he left a love of accordions in the house. And when my children took an interest in traditional music, my father went out and bought each of them a polio soprano to get them started, and that is where the love of music came from.
Hello, I'd like to welcome you here to Neeson's Bar in Mclaughlin. This is where Loughbeg would hold its monthly sessions. My father was a keen piper and took a great interest in traditional music, and myself and the rest of the family were all involved in the music classes, taking part in them in the early days of Loughbeg. Today here I'm joined by two of my nieces, Shanna and Aoibhinn, like new. Shanna on the flute and Aoibhinn on the fiddle. Also I have a nephew as well, Christopher Mclaughlin, who's playing the bodhrán. We're going to play a couple of tunes, a couple of slides, Garavain and Mickey O'Callaghan's. This resurgence meant that the branch was in position to host a county Fleadh in 1998 in partnership with Keith Locha. Due to the success of our scaffolded sessions on Sunday afternoons in the Cross Keys, the number of musicians expanded and led to the formation of Cultúrtha Cross Keys in 1998 as its own entity to incorporate everyone involved. Families involved were Murrays, Weirs, Savages, Ignews and Grahams. This proved very successful, with the group winning the All-Ireland Fleadh in 2000 and being awarded a Drifter Cup. Little did we know this cup was one of 3 Drifter Cups that would be returning to County Antrim, thanks to success in 15 and 18 trio and the marching bands. To finish off the year, the Score group were invited to Aras and Uachtaráin. To commemorate these successes, Cultúrtha Cross Keys made a CD, late nights and Sunday afternoons. In hindsight, this success acted as a catalyst for music in the area and was preceded by numerous All-Irelands across solos, duets, trios, groups and céilí bands. Over the years, Cultúrtha Cross Keys formed great friendships and made many trips, including St Roch's in Glasgow, Cross Keys Cavan and Ghana, France, for which Lucy McElroy handmade Cultúrtha Cross Keys dancing dresses.
Hello, my name's Shana Neeson, and we're the Neeson family. I'll introduce you. This is Leona, and she plays the flute. Caitlin plays the concertina and Park plays the boron and I play the whistle. What brought us into traditional music was our granda Tony. He played the accordion. Our mummy played the fiddle and our daddy is a member of Clooney Band, and it's just from there that we've took up traditional music. So we're going to start, we're going to play 2 jigs and they're called Sleeve Rustle and The Mouse in the Mug.
Clooney Band was formed in 1981 and the band was first tutored by Paddy McGrath, a well-known flute player from Rasharkin. The band was formed to compete in the All-Ireland Fleadh marching band competition. The band competed at All-Ireland level from 1983 up into the year 2000 and has won numerous All-Ireland titles. The main link between Loughbeg and Clooney Band would be about 50% of Loughbeg played in Clooney Band. At the Fleadhs, the ideal situation was play on the stage with a group of Cheoil, come off the stage, change your clothes in the car on the way over and play in the marching band competition. So the band today is going to play 2 tunes, Henry Joy and The Mountain Dew. This is the 3rd generation of Clooney Band. The 1st generation of Clooney Band was in 1912. The band playing today are members of Clooney and Loughbeg.
Hello, I'm Thomas Close and originally from Moneyglass, which is very close to Clooney, where the Crosskeys Ballad group, Crosskeys group is based. And my mother was May Allen, well-known Irish dancing teacher, and has many dancers over the years. Sadly now passed away, she taught for over 70 years. But as well as being a dancing teacher, she's also a very accomplished musician. She played accordion and piano, and in fact took part in the very first Fleadh, All-Ireland Fleadh competition in Mullingar.
Daddy was a farmer and found it very difficult to get away from the land, but he took 1 week every year and we went to the Scollagh, wherever the All-Ireland Fleadh was every year. So that was our holidays as we were growing up, and it's just been part of our upbringing, and now it's part of our children's upbringing. And thankfully they all really love it and they all play music and they all dance for the Allen School of Dancing. The boys dance in the teams, the senior teams and all, and they have such great friends and we really love the whole scene. I've been involved in the Cross Keys for about 10 years or so. I can't remember exactly when I started, and it has been of enormous benefit to our children. I love taking the groups and we really miss it at the moment.
In the present day, we are still competing at All-Ireland level, with the highlight being 3 Groupie Cheoils and 3 Clooney Bands representing Ulster in the All-Ireland Fleadh in Derry in 2013. We believe that our branch has been so successful due to the sense of community, family and relationships formed within the groups across all ages. This is represented by our current senior group, which contains tutors and members from the original group alongside younger generations that have just rolled into senior. We would not be able to function at our current level without the selfless dedication from our tutors, who volunteer their services to nurture and develop the innate talent of our youth. Cross Keys have been represented on coldest tours including Ireland, Britain and America, and was delighted to have a member take part in the Mclaughlin 2016 tour. Loughbeg hosted the County Fleadh in 2016, which brought music to the forefront of the local area and involved many of the local organisations through a cultural parade.
My first encounter of the Antrim and Derry Fiddlers Association was back in the 1950s. I was taken along to one of their events up in a place called Comhaltas, just west of, it's a townland just west of Glenarm, over in the Glens of Antrim. And I had heard for the very first time the uilleann pipes. The piper that particular night was a man called Willie Hope from near Ballycastle in County Antrim. And he played in duet with a fiddle player from Dunloy, a man called Davy Mawhinney. And Davy was a great friend. Both of them were great friends of my father, but particularly Davy because he was a cabinet maker like my father. And besides being a cabinet maker, he also was a very fine instrument maker and made some very fine fiddles. And Davy and Willie Hope, the piper, the uilleann piper, went down to Mullingar in 1951 for the very first gathering of Comhaltas Cultúrtha Éireann. They were there for the very first gathering. It wasn't quite a Fleadh that first year because they were all housed in the one hotel in Mullingar and all the activities took place. There were a concert and so forth. There was no competitions or anything. But Paddy Mclaughlin, who was one of the last survivors of that, died not an awful length of time ago, maybe I think about 10 years ago. I'm not sure about the dates, but Paddy told me that the following year was the very first Fleadh actually, and it was held in his home place in Monaghan in 1952. Now, those two County Antrim men, Willie Hope and Davy Mawhinney, in 1953 were part of the formation of the Antrim and Derry Fiddlers Association, along with people like Alec Kerr and Mickey Mclaughlin and all sorts of... I better not mention too many names because I'm bound to leave out a lot of names that should be mentioned. But certainly they were there at the very beginning of the Antrim and Derry Fiddlers Night. So then we move on to more recent times. And
well, I suppose I was even thinking as you were talking about our memories as us growing up, going to the Derry and Antrim Fiddlers, and what the thing was, it was so different from another session because there was the set tunes that were arranged and sorted for the night. And because when we started playing music, we were playing whistles. That was kind of sort of nearly the exemption because everybody else was playing fiddles. Yeah. And we would have been in the early days in Brushean. And even the supper and the tea was magnificent in contrast because it was
done right. It
was done right. It was teacups and saucers and pastries and scones and all the rest of it. But we were in awe of people like Willis Patton,
Yes.
who was playing the whistle, and John Kennedy would have been there, and obviously all the Cares, and Alec and Doris Crawford.
Right. The Crawfords, yeah.
And what was it? Jean Macaulay played the piano.
That's right. She was one of them.
And there was a number of different pianists,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they would have taken it in turn to
That's
do to accompany the music. So when maybe we weren't going to so many sessions, that was our night out,
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
went to the Derry and Antrim Fiddlers, and then that kind of struck up a long-term relationship with Alec and Doris Crawford.
Yes.
And when Rasharkin had its first Clooney Band, the Ushna Clooney Band, in the early 1980s, Doris played the piano for us, and Alec was sort of our instructor and just picked the tunes and kept us right.
Yeah.
And we were long-time friends with them, and in actual fact, Alec actually left one of his fiddles for to the McGraths for us to have. So Grania actually uses it at the minute.
Right.
So, and then of course Doris and Alec were the Belfast branch of Comhaltas, and they the Northern Province, wasn't it?
Northern Province
Clooney Band, and Doris was the secretary of the Belfast branch for Comhaltas. But through the Derry and Antrim Fiddlers, then we met, a whole different range of musicians and a different culture.
Yeah.
And I remember Mummy and Daddy talking about being in Orange Halls.
Oh, yeah. Well,
playing
that's-
music,
that's-
and
that's
that
the
was
way-
all
that's
part of
what-
the
yeah,
story
yeah.
and the history.
Yeah.
Because the Derry and Antrim, I suppose we should say country fiddlers, and they and called us then, there was a liaison officer, and when we were young, that was Billy McKee.
Billy McKee.
And I think, did Billy McKee learn from the same person as Jimmy Keeley and Ballymoney? I have a notion.
He had a lot of pupils.
And Billy McKee, and then when Billy retired from that post, then Jeannie took on the mantle because and she was the liaison officer for over 30 years with the Derry and Antrim Fiddlers. And then now that Mummy has retired from that post,
You got the job.
I've got the job. So you have the pleasure of having a fit in both camps and liaison between
Well,
the organisations. There's a very healthy link between the two, and the present committee with Maeve McKeown as chair.
Maeve, the County Derry and Antrim Country Fiddlers Association, it's an awful mouthful of a name. Do you ever think of changing it?
Everybody says that, but in actual fact, we were inaugurated in 1953 as the Antrim and Derry Country Fiddlers Association.
I beg your pardon.
Not that there's any problem. I don't mind which county comes first, but no, that's the way we were. That's what we were born as.
What is it precisely that you do?
We have a community of musicians, not just fiddles, but we have a bunch of musicians that just love music. And I've been teaching there for the last 23 years. So really, the teaching team is now 9. And we have over 100 fiddlers come on a Saturday morning, and they come from all arts and parts and from all backgrounds, because that was the ethos of why the Antrim and Derry was set up in 1953.
The style of this area, would you say it's a unique style?
I think the North has a recognisable style. It is very direct and it's very clipped. And that kind of shows as well the exchange we would have with Scotland. And Donegal would have the same. We have a liaison with Donegal fiddlers, and it's the same.
Can I ask, you've been talking about the style.
Yeah.
I think I would like to hear the difference in style. If you could illustrate it in a short passage, perhaps.
In a short passage, if I take a jig, the Antrim style would be very pronounced, very... Yeah, whereas I'd say the more ornamented style would be less beaty. It would be much more lilty.
I think it's the sort of music that would be easier to dance to.
It's a good dancing style. It's good for ceilidh music. We like our ceilidhs up here. Probably keeps us warm as well.
Harcion Comhaltas Glens of Antrim, Fáilte go dtí ar Geantar is ar Cheoil. The Green Glens of Antrim are tucked behind the Antrim Plateau in the northeast corner of Ireland, looking across at the Mull of Kintyre in Scotland. Since the 5th century, for hundreds of years, the ancient kingdom of Dalriada linked the Glens of Antrim to Kintyre and the Hebrides of Scotland. This is part of our rich cultural tradition. Each year, since 1904, Feis na Glan, or the Glens Feis, has celebrated the traditions of the Glens, including Gaelic games, local crafts, music, dancing, and singing in Irish and in English. The first meeting of what later became known as Glens of Antrim Comhaltas was held in Mick Quinn's house in Cushendall in 1986. Paddy Burns, Pat Clarkin and Mick Quinn were 3 founder members of Comhaltas who have since passed on. They were stalwarts in the preservation and promotion of local traditions, leading the way and laying down the foundations on which our thriving Comhaltas branch of today was built. Glens Comhaltas had early successes at All-Ireland level, with Colm Crummy winning the All-Ireland Slow Air and the Fiddle, and Oliver McAllister winning an All-Ireland title on the Boron. From its early years, Glens Comhaltas has hosted County Fleadh Cheoil. Over the years, in the spirit of Mullanoi Agus Chuckishi, the branch has been very active in helping to organise classes, music sessions and concerts, as well as sharing our music with other organisations and in other places. For example, a group of young musicians from Comhaltas Glens of Antrim contributed to a St. Patrick's Day concert in Spain. There's a very strong sense of community in the Glens. This is seen most clearly in the annual Heart of the Glens Festival. Comhaltas Glens of Antrim plays its part every year in this festival, including organising a street ceilidh with the Waves of Tory, and it brings locals and visitors together. Comhaltas Glens of Antrim also organises a very successful Dalriada Sounds concert in the local Church of Ireland church. A key theme of this concert each year is the links between the Glens and Scotland, as reflected in the music and the song from each. Recently, our young musicians joined up with young musicians from Campbelltown in Scotland in a joint music project. Here we have them all playing their part in this rendition of Mrs. MacLeod's Reel. Another influential character in the early days of Comhaltas in the Glens was Dan Lafferty. He had an unrivalled knowledge of traditional musicians and tunes. Here, Dan regales us with a story about Archie McKeegan, a local singer.
Well, with a sister, and he was telling me about he went into this shop and there had a lot of good boots in it, and he said he would get a pair of boots when he was over. So he went into the man and he asked, he says, what size fits you? He says, a 7 would do me, he says. And the man went up until a wee half laughed and he looked and he says, looked down at him. He says, 8 would be the only, of a big 8, he says, it would be the only size it or near to your size. But he says, can you put on a couple of pair of socks with them? Lord, he says, I took the boots, he says, for they were good boots and they were worth the money. And he was telling me later, and one night I was over, he says they're very good boots, very comfortable boots for walking, but he says the only thing that I have again them, he says, when you would be dancing Satish or hornpipe or anything, he says they were slapping up and down.
For hundreds of years, a form of shinty, shinny, commons or hurling has been played in the Glens. Since the local Rory Oak Club was formed in the early 20th century, hurling has been the main sport in the area. Cushendall is the birthplace of the founder of the Irish Folklore Commission, Seamus Ó Delarga. Born in Delargy's Hotel, now the Knockmoy Fold, Seamus in later life was instrumental in saving songs and stories in Irish and English throughout the whole country. The Irish spoken in the Glens of Antrim was a particular dialect, heavily influenced by Scottish Gaelic. One of the last native speakers of Glens Irish, Jimmy Vrian Macaulay, died on the 25th of February 1983. So the Glens dialect is still very much a part of our recent past. We continue now with a song in Glens Irish, Arda Cuan. It was written by Sean McAmbrose of Glendun and will be sung for us now by Carl Blaney McAllister.
Nach nairim go Kelly, London a train. Galawan smolach nes gachien. Is chan eich neem hen an donach. Agus och Harry, agus Harry Lando, agus Shame o creata trom agus brona. Da me wagam clutches row. Jammer heel yammer remed now. This may ik dul as Giegos royens lam. Escoi hin was in Yeren. Agus och Harry, agus Harry Lando, agus shame o creata trom, agus bronach.
We'll finish off now with a few jigs. Shinna Willanish, Slan.
now we've left Cushendall and we brought you over the mountain into the town of Ballycastle. And the first branch of Comhaltas in Ballycastle was formed in 1965, with many of the members of the Antrim and Derry fiddlers were involved. Now, there was at least 2 competitions, fiddle competitions held in the 1960s, and these brought people from all over Ireland and beyond. There's actually some came across the Atlantic were involved, but it brought a great crowd into Ballycastle. People like Seamus Connolly competed. There was also Tommy Peoples. Many others came to Ballycastle for that. It was called the Lammas Fair, a fiddle competition. So there was at least 2 of those were held in the 1960s.
And so we have Frank Mclaughlin. Frank was a great character, well known in the area of County Antrim and Ballycastle. Also a founder member of the Ballycastle CCE as well. Frank was well known through the country of Ireland for his fantastic versatile playing, but also his great compositions that have been recorded many times all through very famous musicians over the years. Frank spent a lot of time composing in his early years, and one of his famous tunes was The Home Ruler. Now, people seem to think because Frank was a Grand Master in the Orange Lodge that this was attributed to that, but actually it wasn't. It was to do with his wife. His wife kept a good tight fist on him and he called her the Home Ruler. And now you're going to hear the kids playing it. Dominic McNabb was well known in the area of Ballycastle in County Antrim for his true County Antrim fiddle style. It came down the line of his father Alec, who was a great fiddle player and bagpiper of the area as well. His style was very respected in the sense of it was very true to the county, and Dominic was one of the first people to sort of introduce traditional music into the younger community at the time, with the helping of setting up of the Ballycastle branch of Comhaltas. From there, Dominic carried on his life to compose many great tunes and develop a lot of the younger musicians in not just session playing, but in solo fiddle playing as well. And now you're going to hear a couple of tunes that were composed by Dominic for his granddaughter and his grandson. Another great character well known in the area of Ballycastle, originally from Armoy, and also a founder member of the Ballycastle CCE, was the great Sean Mclaughlin, also known as the Shadow. Sean had a great life in traditional fiddle playing and was known the length and breadth of England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales and America. He composed some fantastic tunes, and one of his lifelong friends was obviously the great Sean Maguire, and they would trade tunes on a regular basis. Some that Sean broadcast himself, mostly the Golden Shadows was quite a famous one actually. Sean Mclaughlin won the All-Ireland Championship and was one of the very first in the early years to bring it to the north of Ireland. And he also wrote some of the most famous tunes that we still play today. You're going to get a little taster of one of his lovely jigs, Laramie's Jig, that was composed by himself, and is going to be composed or played now by the harp class led by Maria McGowan.
Well, here now we have the Calleen Jazz. That is Mairead McMahon, as she was then. She's now better known as Mairead Walls from Dunloy, playing the tin whistle. This competition was held at a wonderful honour to County Antrim, particularly to Ballycastle, back in the mid-1980s, when there was a national festival held called Oran Agus Rinka. It was a singing and dancing festival, and it brought wonderful dancers, singers, and musicians from all over Ireland, and this ran for several years, right up to the early 2000s, and it was a wonderful gathering, and there were workshops for singing and dancing of all the old step dances, set dances, and various other ceilidhs and whatever you had, fun galore. Some of the dancing workshops were held by the renowned dance master, Joe Donovan, and his wife, Siobhan, and they came all the way up from Cork. And there was others as well. There was great set dance teachers as well. And we had singing workshops held by people like Paddy Tunney, Seamus McMahuna, and various other people. Geordie Hanna, of course, was up, and his sister, Sarah Ann O'Neill, and many others came for these wonderful gatherings of singers and dancers and musicians back in those years.
County Derry may boast of her heath-covered mountains and many fold scenes so enchanting and rare. Her deep flowing rivers and bright rushing fountains that flow through her glens and her valleys so rare. But dearer to me are the blue hills of Antrim, where nature's bedecked birds are all singing with joy. Where could you go for a jolly night's dancing that could equal that love spot of sweet bonny Dunloy?
Hello, Acharja. Céad míle fáilte hig Dunloy. Straidhwaile bug glócha. Just tucked into the edge of the Glens of Antrim. We're known for our music, our hurling, and our influence in the recent revival of the Irish language in County Antrim. We hosted the 2019 Antrim Fleadh, and since lockdown, we've been online and even managed a socially distanced garden party. This year, we grabbed the opportunity to play for FleadhFest.
So Barney, we're here to chat about Dunloy Comhaltas, and you know a bit more about it than most. Maybe you could tell us a wee bit about how it all began.
Well, that's why I know more. Probably I'm older than you, and that's the start. No, it started in the 10th of June, 76. It was announced that there'd be music classes. And that's when I came in and I brought my daughter with me to attend the classes. And at that time I didn't know very many people in Dunloy, but I soon got to know them. But the music classes were great.
Tommy McGoldrick, he taught the fiddle, and John Kennedy, he did the tin and whistle class. We decided to build a Jack Cheoil, decided to have our own wee place, which we were lucky in that the GAA came to our aid again and he gave us a piece of land. Now, Michael Breslin and Frank Mclaughlin and Frank McKee, the three Franks, Frank Dugan, they purchased the hall from Hearn Brothers, and that hall was Hearn Brothers' workshop in a site in Ballymena. It was the hub of the town just.
It was, like when the hall opened in January '85, it was a fantastic night, and I remember playing, as a youngster, playing in the session in the opening concert, and the hall was packed to capacity, and I think it probably only had a capacity for about maybe 200-300 people, but there, as they say, there was standing room only. I don't think there even was, but it was a big achievement for Dunloy, such a small branch, and still quite a young branch of Comhaltas, because this was still only the 80s.
Oh, very young.
And like outside the Culturland in Dublin, there was only one other Comhaltas centre, and that was the Cushenhana in Ennis. So there was no other branch in Ireland, England, or indeed the world had their own Comhaltas centre, and we were the first in Ulster. And in fact, I think at that time the Ulster chairman was Harry Mullen, and right. That was, he said the opening of the Dunloy Comhaltas centre was actually the seed for the Dunilla centre in Ulster. when you think really the musicians that we grew up playing with in the 80s, there was a great band of us playing, and we played in all the sessions, and we went to all the flas and festivals all over the county and all over Ulster and the All Ireland. And like, not to single out any one particular musician, because they're all fantastic musicians and singers, but Damien McKee is a fabulous musician, and he's got fantastic. He's done a fantastic job with the band Bioga, like bringing traditional music, Antrim traditional music, to that wider audience. Like, he's internationally known now with the work that he's done with Bioga. I remember one particular expedition we had down to the Comhaltas headquarters in Clooney to record the Clooney Band. Remember our junior Clooney Band, under 18 Clooney Band.
That's right.
We'd got second in the All Ireland. I think it was 1985 or 86. And we were asked to come down and play for the Mountain Lark programme that was RTE were running at that time from the Comhaltas headquarters. And yous all come down, and I think if you hear in the recording all the daddies cheering like Billy-O in the background, I think they thought that they had let these wild cats in the back. But it was just fantastic even to have that recording, to look back on, and it was...
But it was a great achievement for like a village from the size of Dunloy to be recognised for the music they had.
But then you had, when the Comhaltas had been running there for about 10 years, they opened a Nace School. 1995 it was opened in the Comhaltas Centre, because the emphasis, they realised, I think it was Michael Breslin really was the driving force behind that, and he really was behind the resurgence of the Irish language in this area. I think there's a great committee now in Dunloy, and there's a lot of fantastic young musicians coming through, and there's a love of traditional music.
Pretty good.
And I think it's like you see it through time, and I used to see it going through adjudicating at flas and that. You see a surge of young players, and then there's a lull for a while, and then it comes back round again. And I think that's what's happened in Dunloy. There's another surge now coming through. There's a lot of good musicians and singers, some beautiful singers coming through as well.
Is buja soak me ta triel han mo fosta. Is ni bueni wad bio me marawai me movin. A kushla is a story. Jan Ray is Beirumsa. Kyan Jerenak den donak vohring drumschleef. Is tershak is bronak a kai him shandonak. Mohata yamagorn smegos nil go trom. Smegor kerna boyra min mograsa e goilan. Isiag farel aposta is gani velam. Isiag farel aposta is gani velam.
Gorma agat brona. I hope you all enjoyed your visit to Dunloy Comhaltas.
Rasharkin, from the Irish Rasharkin, is a small village south of Ballymoney. The first Comhaltas branch was formed in January 1978 by the late Paddy McGrath and continues to flourish to this day.
Going back to the 70s, I was nominated as chairman of the branch, and little did I know at that time just that was going to be a very big year in the Rasharkin Comhaltas, because the committee decided that they would have to have the county flaith, and that to bring a county flaith to Rasharkin was it was a big thing in the 70s. Everybody was there at the flaith. The streets were thronged. You would nearly have thought it was an All-Ireland flaith that Saturday night. And there's some photos about to this day that points that out. And the music, there were music everywhere in the streets and in the pubs. At that time there were, I think, maybe 4 pubs in Rasharkin. And there were music in the mall, and as well as that, there were music in the streets. And we were blessed, as I remember, we were blessed with good weather. An abiding memory with me about those sessions. There were lots of good musicians come from all over the country, but what I remember most, as I would have been interested in, was singing. Len Graham and Joe Holmes, they came and they sang songs. Of course, we had a very famous singer ourselves, and Jeannie McGrath would always give us a few verses, maybe of Glonone or some of those old songs.
Brighter by far than the snow that blows over the top of Mclaughlin.
Another very abiding memory is the rhymers. And then there one particular night sticks out in my mind. I'll never forget it. Robert Mclaughlin was an auditor of Comhaltas at that time. And we were designated to go away up to his house one night. We were invited up with the rhymers. And we went away up and went into Martinstown. And it was snowing. And away out along a mountain road, I was thinking to myself, going out with cripes, how the hell are we ever going to get home out of this here, if this snow goes on? But when Anand had a great night, we Robert Mclaughlin, and they had Irish stew and all for us there, and it was a great night's music, and we come out, and the snow had fared up anyway, and we got home with no bother.
Are you going to give us a poem? Have you a poem there?
At the foot of the long mountain, where the feathery mist floats down,
There spread along the landscape sits my native little town. Some people go to big cities and find places far away. But from you, dear old Rasharkin, I never far will stray.
So I used to frequent the old pub that was here in Rasharkin. At that time it was owned by a wonderful old lady called Tilly McKernan. And I was in here having a nice bottle of Guinness one night, and I met a gentleman called Paddy McGrath for the first time. And we exchanged conversation, and I think a few songs were sung, and even Tilly herself sang a song or two, and that was the beginning of a wonderful friendship. Paddy took me up the road to Moneyleck, just not too far away from the pub here, and for the first time I met his lovely wife, Jeannie. And over the years we had some wonderful nights of Caelan music and fleadhs and gatherings all over Ireland. As I say, I always associate Rasharkin with many things, but always songs are the thing that sort of sticks in your mind over the years, and this is one that I've never been able to find anywhere else, and it's been recorded by quite a number of people over the years. It's called One Morning in May. One morning in May, as I carelessly didn't stray for the view yon gay meadows and the lambs sport and play. In the clear morning dew, as I lay down to muse, a fair maiden of honour appeared in my view. Says I, Printy Min, how happy we could be, for it is so decreed, love, that married we should be. Let me none see a frown, for this heart is your own. When these words they were spoken, sure the tears trickled down.
The first flute that I was lucky enough to have was a B-flat flute that was given to me by Paddy McGrath. Paddy at that time was involved with teaching two competition flute bands, one of them the Sons of Ireland from Rasharkin and the other Clooney Flute Band from Mclaughlin. These bands set the precedent for many years in competitions by playing traditional tunes, jigs and marches. From graduating on from having the B-flat flute, I moved on to the concert flute, and indeed started a long tradition not only in Rasharkin but also throughout Antrim of traditional flute playing. The tune we are going to play today is a tune called the Pikeman's March. It was one of the first tunes that I was lucky enough to learn from Paddy, and it's a tune that over the years has become synonymous with Rasharkin CCE.
Jeannie McGrath. She has given her lifetime to the preservation and the promotion of the culture. Music and song. I understand that there were fiddle players in your father and your mother's families.
Yes, both my father and my mother had brothers who played the fiddle, but they emigrated, one to Scotland and he died there, and I remember the remains being brought home, and the other who went to America, to New Jersey. He was a carpenter by trade. And my mother sang in the choir, and then she brought me to sing with her in later days. So that maybe encouraged me to sing a bit too.
You got involved in a local level, at county level, at provincial level, and nationally as well with Comhaltas. You've served the organisation right through.
They had a liaison situation between, I think it was a Clare man who came north, I'm not quite sure, Sean Reid, yes, who came north to talk to the Comhaltas people and to the fiddlers people and to have an amalgamation that it wouldn't be a black and white situation. And that was, so a person was appointed, and the first person was Frank Mclaughlin, I think. He was a fiddle player from Ballycastle. Doris Crawford was one of the last, and late Doris Crawford, who was a lovely person. And it became that we went to both, Paddy and I would have gone to the fiddlers session and we'd have gone to the Comhaltas session in Portglenone.
Now, Jeannie reached a national stature, a national stage, when she was appointed as the representative of the Antrim and Derry Country Fiddlers Association to the Ard Choria of Comhaltas Ceoil. In our constitution, we have an equal voting right for a representative from the ADCFA.
And I suppose I would always remember the McGrath House as a house of music and song and fun and laughing. We seemed to do an awful lot of laughing. But there was always music and song in the house with the family themselves and also with visitors who came.
As they return to their heavenly zone, these words on their lips would be the parting. Fare thee well, and God rest you, Glenone.
And I suppose there are so many characters. Willie O'Connor.
Yeah, well, I know that Willie told me, and as did Tommy McGoldrick, who's one of your tutors as well, fiddle tutors. They both went to Union Street in Ballymoney to Jimmy Keeley, Jerry Keeley's father, and Jimmy Keeley had been a foremost fiddler of an early period of probably from the 1930s, because the great song collector Sam Henry used him quite a lot for his BBC broadcast back in that time, where he had used Jimmy to play the melodies and play reels and jigs and hornpipes as well.
My memories always of Willie is that he always played slow airs, Ned of the Hill and Blind Mary. And he loved, and sometimes he would have played the Cullen, and he also, his fiddle had come from London, because he had been over in Wales, working in Wales, and then he went over to London and he worked in Fleet Street. And when he was in Fleet Street, there was a antique fiddle shop, or instrument shop, and he brought back 4 fiddles. And those were the fiddles then that he played. And I know that Liam had talked previously about being out with the rhymers, and Willie and we all would have been out going round the different houses, and there is always the story that Willie said, we have to stop at home because I need to turn the turkey, I need to turn the beast. And John Minney, who's a member of our committee, John and Willie would have travelled the country playing together. So the other person then that we talked about there was Tommy McGoldrick.
Tommy again, yeah, great man.
And he played all over the place, really, didn't he?
Yeah, and all sorts of different combinations. Of course, when you're trying to make a livelihood out of music and whatever, you have to sometimes go into all sorts of genres.
Yes.
But his heart was very much in the traditional music, and you like, again, slow airs. Like Tommy had a lovely touch in the slow airs as well as Willie.
He won the All Ireland slow airs in 1981, and then he was always renowned for playing the Cullen. And I suppose his other claim to fame is that we Rasharkin will hold on to is the fact that he was a very well known artist. And did watercolours and oil paintings, and was self-taught. Through various connections, he eventually fell in with Charlie Macaulay, and they became friends. So if anybody has a Tommy McGoldrick painting now at this point in time,
they've got very.
they're very, very blessed. So we have been very fortunate in the tutors that we've had, because we've had, people coming through from Tommy and Willie, and we also had Dennis Sweeney, who
another
fantastic fiddle player from Randallstown, and taught for a long time in the classes. And then we have moved on, and we're now at the stage where our pupils that have passed through the classes are now back teaching. So we have Brian, and we have John Minney, and we have Karen Crockett, and we have Alicia O'Keehan, and we have the McGraths all at differing points, and the classes have been going in the St Patrick's Primary School, and we've been very fortunate. And thank you to the Board of Governors and Noel McCann and the primary school that we're able to keep going and doing so well.
Good.
I hope you enjoyed our presentation from County Antrim, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you all at our next County Fleadh in 2022. Now we'll finish up with a set of tunes from our musicians around the county.